and welcome to my annual list of anime that I enjoyed during this exciting year of 2022. This is not every anime I watched or liked this year, just some of my favorites that don't have their own video yet. Any anime I'm planning future reviews on won't be on this list. There isn't anything from the fall season since I haven't finished any of those yet. And of course, any sequels that have came out this year that I haven't seen the prequels of won't be here either. There are some notable anime that aren't on this list that probably would have been here if I actually finished them on time. There's a fair bit of anime to talk about regardless, so let's not waste any more time and let's start off with... If we were calculating which anime studio had the best year, which should be an award, by the way, Crunchyroll, get on your shit, Cloverworks wins easily. I mean, their track record this year was insane, and I haven't even seen Bocchi yet. And Akebi is in that conversation for me. Matter of fact, this is probably the best pure slice-of-life adaptation since Nanan Byoi. And that's high praise, considering that's my favorite slice-of-life anime of all time. One thing this and other slice-of-life shows do amazingly is depicting youth in a way so wholesome that justifies the lack of story. They encapsulate the saying slice of life to an absolute T, but they also have enough backing to stand out visually. Which, holy crap, this series has some of the most beautiful scenes of the year. Every episode has at least one visually picturesque scene. At moments in the series where a character has a grand moment, it gets accompanied by such a gorgeous scene every time. There's a fair bit of CGI, mostly for the backgrounds, but honestly, you can hardly notice it. It's so well implemented. This anime has a variety of characters, each having some relatable issue that real-life teenagers go through, at least I think. Body topics, finding motivation, potentially not being accepted, having a weird hobby here or there. It's all in there, baby. It helps keep the series grounded, like you could find this place in real life, something that again, shows like Nanan Byoi and K-On! Were great at creating. Despite being animation, it always feels real. I liked how the music mostly featured piano, since Erica plays piano. And Akebi as a character was an enjoyable one to follow. The first episode was still a series highlight, even after a rewatch. Because seeing Akebi's two wishes clash with one another and putting her in a position where she had to choose one or the other, and the way it was built was so heartbreaking to see. Only to be relieving since she instantly found someone she related to. Her wearing the sailor suit made her stand out, but she wasn't outcasted. That underlying theme makes the show even more heartwarming to me. I also liked Toko as a character. She did most of the work in the background to help set up situations where her friends can be the happiest. She just seems like a really good person because of that. This is a must-watch if you like slice-of-life anime. It's sweet, it's heartwarming, it's comforting, it can even make you emotionally invested. It has all the feelings you want in a slice-of-life anime. I mean, watch it if a girl slowly turning an entire school gay for her is something that you want to see. Damn sure is something I wanted to see. An anime that makes you feel dark after watching it is not what's really wanted these days. That was a quote that Shingo Adachi said about his latest project, Lycoris Recoil, when it began airing. Whether you feel he's white or not isn't relevant, but I think it's fair to remind viewers of what the original mindset was from the head of the project now that the anime is actually finished. Lycoris Recoil is a great anime. I've heard the criticisms of the story not being up to par, but I have to disagree there. This anime conveys the serious themes and messages while also keeping the main charm of the series, which is Takena and Chisato. The beginning of the story shows the good sides of the world they're set in, so that when the world is threatened towards the end of the show, you understand Chisato because you've seen the good sides of the world and why she's so happy and willing to protect it. Balancing a slice-of-life series while still having a well-developed, tension-filled action scene entirely built off moments that were built in previous episodes is solid writing to me. The final few episodes were brilliant in my opinion. They wrote in a villain that you can understand, even root for at times because he's exposing a truly fucked up system. The world isn't peaceful, it's just ignorant to the truth that the government is hiding. Majima might be my favorite antagonist of the year, because he tells the truth about the world, but he's also able to say his words in a way to have the citizens turn against the Lycoris, aka the people that were protecting them this entire time. Despite being a terrorist who was able to bring the people to his side. I loved how everything was very subtly built towards this fight scene. Chisato talking about time, Majima talking about balance, Chisato not killing anybody, which is an understandable opinion to have since her life was saved by someone, but that also becomes a weakness towards the end. The story isn't over yet entirely because Chisato doesn't kill. So any death that happens in the future can be indirectly put on her because she didn't kill Majima. I wonder if that'll come into play later. This series built up season 2 really nicely. Despite the quote I said earlier, the ending is more of a double-edged sword if you really think about it, because the DA is still winning. Young orphans are still used as hitmen and assassins. The government is still lying to the people about what's happening. For a series I was so sure wasn't going to continue just by how the story was getting built up, it has all the reasons to have another season now. I can understand why people aren't fans of the ending. For all the emotional build-up it got, what was supposed to happen to Chisato didn't happen. But if what was meant to happen to her actually did happen, then you lose the charm of the series. The story isn't over yet. Hell, Chisato's character still has room to grow now that the real bad guy of the series is gone. I just don't see how it would help the show. It'd be like losing the heart of the show. No pun intended. The cast is probably my favorite part of the show. It has a fun main duo, they contrast almost completely, and both could learn from each other. Mostly Takana grows from Chisato, she becomes less of a killer, less of a workaholic, and most of all, she's developed a protective nature for Chisato. This leads to some entertaining and of course heartbreaking to watch scenes. Fucking Yoshi, man. There's also an entertaining side cast. Kurumi being a genius hacker but still acting like a child, Mika's heart being pulled apart because of the situation between Chisato and Yoshi before finally standing his ground, even if he still has to lie to Chisato at the end. His father and daughter relationship with Chisato was really sweet as well. Even Fuki and the rest of the DA had a fair bit of time to shine. I don't particularly like every character in the show. I think Sakura was just really being annoying just to be annoying, but besides that, they were all pretty well done. Overall, I think this is a really good series. The story balances its serious and less serious scenes well. It built up a lot of tension for the final moments while keeping its charm. The animation is smooth, the voice acting is stellar. Even small things like this, it's just adorable. Is it the dark tragedy maybe some people thought it'd be? No, but it's not over yet, and I'm excited to see where it goes. There are so many different possibilities it could choose from. It's a really well-built story that could go somewhere even more amazing. Just another cute girl anime I watched this year. Though this anime has a bit of an intriguing plot that isn't just girls doing real estate, it actually got pretty dark towards the end, which I appreciated. Not often do you see a cute girl anime go down that route. The character design is really good, and the overall look of the show is really colorful and cute. Dogakobo is known for this kind of show. I was actually surprised at the amount of fan service. Not to be a prune about naked lollies, this is a positive, not a negative. It just might catch someone unaware of the series off guard. If you need another reason to watch this show, it has Fa in it. Fa is adorable. You all should watch this just for Fa. Phantom of the Idol isn't my favorite idol show of the year, we'll get to that one later, but as the idol trash that I am, I enjoyed this show quite a lot actually. It's not perfect, but it's an enjoyable watch. To get the negatives out the way quickly, this show is really short with only about 10 episodes to its name, and it suffers from the most infectious disease that affects millions of idol shows: poor idol concert CGI. Now that we got that out the way, the comedic elements of the show are solid, and the contrasting character archetypes of the main trio mixed in with the fact that one is a literal ghost made for some pretty funny scenes. Specifically when Asahi changes bodies with Nyoto and everyone just assumes he goes through a massive character change. It was entertaining to follow the main character who doesn't care about being an idol. He does it for the money. It's just really fun following a guy who's a lazy dick in one of these animes for a change. A lot of the cast is pretty well done, honestly. From Yoshino viewing idols in such high regard that he thinks he can't be one, to Satoshi struggling to come to grips with the fact that he likes Nyoto because he's the last connection to the idol that inspired him to follow his dream. Even Nyoto grows a little bit. The fan group was pretty funny. I don't know why idol anime have to make their fans look so obsessive. Hell, there was an entire anime about this a few years ago. But this group is pretty entertaining. Overall, it's a fun little watch. It has some decent character growth, some funny moments featuring a deadpan main protagonist, and ridiculous character interactions. Even the songs aren't that bad. If you can ignore the shortness and the CGI, it's a good idol comedy. I was initially worried about this series because I figured it was gonna be another show ultimately carried by the main girl. I was very wrong. The main thing that makes this show really good is the main couple. For a series that you will most likely check out because of Marin only, I was surprised at just how well developed and relatable the entire cast is, including Marin. The biggest surprise is Gojo, who sadly will get miscategorized as another one of these cookie-cutter loser protagonists that will be relatable to a certain set of losers who watch this series, aka the Kazuya protagonist. But as far as this trope goes, he's one of the best written ones I've seen. To the point, putting him in the same breath as these characters is blatantly misrepresenting him and also kind of an insult to the character. I'm not saying he's original or anything, but he will be relatable to anybody who's had a dream, a profession that they want to do and be proud of. And it's obvious he's a character going through some sort of social anxiety or depression because a member of his family dissed his dream and called it girly. So it put him in a box where he felt none of his peers would truly understand him, or they would just ridicule him. Until Marin comes along, of course. Plus, there are a lot of times when he takes the initiative. Matter of fact, when it comes to a topic he's into, he can actually be quite intelligent and talkative. Someone's passion can completely change how they act, and accepting that is important. Even something as light as a diss made when you were kids can greatly affect someone's belief on how they will be perceived if they were to ever share what they love doing, causing them to suppress and hide it, especially high schoolers who overthink everything. This isn't a new topic, but the anime handles it so well that it's impossible not to praise it. Marin does take the initiative a lot as well when it comes to activities, but when it comes to love, her more shy side was easily the best part of her character to me. I also like how she just cut the questioning part and went straight to crushing on Gojo as soon as she noticed the feeling. Again, seeing someone talk so passionately about what they love doing can have that effect. The cast seems human overall, like they're real people. The issues they go through are real. Even the side characters just feel like regular people. The character growth was really good with them, despite not being in the show for all that long. Seeing a loner like Juju develop more friends in her field and feel guilty for making wrongful assumptions, or her sister who wanted to look a certain way but felt she couldn't and thus hid her love for cosplay as well. Very good stuff all around, probably relatable to cosplayers too, I don't know. This goes without saying, but the production is solid. There were some really smooth looking shots, and the bench and fireworks scenes instantly come to mind as really fluid. Sometimes the anime will try different styles like split screens or different fonts, which makes the episodes feel less repetitive. There were also times where the music will overpower a scene, creating an emotional, larger reaction, and I personally loved the ending. A simple, calm, I love you during a late night call session after the partner has already slept was such a vibe. Overall, I love this show. I think it'll have longevity and it has the potential to be a top romantic comedy. Your Boy Kongming surprised me. I assumed it'd be another outrageous comedy due to the name of the show, and the fact it's about a tactician ending up in modern times. That kind of premise just screams comedy. But it turned out to be so much more than that, starting from the very first episode. Immediately, the series will catch you off guard with its grounded characters and really, really well animated music scenes. While the animation does have its flashy and fluid moving shots and colorful backgrounds, the best parts are the mouth and body movements in the music scenes, or really just in general. Even Nanami's lip quivers were well done. It's a ridiculous concept, but it's a lot more of a grounded character building show than it is a comedy. Anyone who's had some sort of dream can relate to Eiko's feelings of quitting because you don't really expect it to go anywhere. It's like we have a certain timetable in our brains of when something can happen, when in reality, a road can be cleared if you have a good enough brain behind you that can motivate you to actually put yourself out there. A good support system and someone who just has a plan for you can make the dream a reality. Natural talent can only get you so far, especially in an industry as overcrowded. This series demonstrates this message in two ways. One with Eiko and Kongming, and the other with Azalea, who's this big idol group supported by a major label. I'ma try to explain their story without spoiling much. So a small band wants to make music but is failing. A scummy label guy finds them, turns them into a scatteredly dressed idol group, and makes them sing his songs. Sometimes they lip sync. Overall, not exactly what the band wanted when they first started music. First off, never thought I'd be uncomfortable by a fan service scene. Secondly, this honestly feels more like a critique of the music industry in general rather than just Idol. And it's a great way to contrast with Eiko's story. Similar beginnings, but in the end, the music industry can be a messed up place. A place that can turn innocent wishes into nightmares. And the anime demonstrates that really well. Told ya this isn't just a comedy. Even Kongming's character is shown still remembering his time from his past life. But he wouldn't go back because he wants to see the future with Eiko. Something that resonates with Kabe, which grew out his character. It's a well-developed cast, which again caught me off guard. A few smaller things now. I enjoyed how the strategies Kongming used in the past are almost the same as what he does now, just in modern times. The anime does a good job explaining these things in the beginning for those who don't know the real Kongming. The music is really good. Eiko's song at the end is beautiful. I really like the one Eiko and Nanamine sing.
I still like today. You are so far away.
96 Neko just knows what she's doing as a singer. The OP is the catchiest thing in the world. Go ahead and listen to it. Go ahead. And when you do listen to it, try to get Chan Chan a Chiki Chiki Bon Bon out your head. Go ahead, try. Try! I dare you! I dare you, motherfucker! Sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself there. That nonsensical saying has been stuck in my head for months. It is my OP of the year though. It's just a lot of fun. So yeah, don't expect just a comedy here. It's much more than that. If you want a solid character drama with good music, well executed scenes, fun and in-depth characters, this is probably the best anime of the year for you. Unless Bocchi is as good as everyone says it is. Then it can be a close second. Fun fact, did you know Bocchi pops up in an episode of this? I don't know why, but that's a thing. This is a cute little anime about fishing. A typical cute girl experience, though I did think the way family was talked about in this anime was good. The conflict of having a new sister and parent was handled greatly. Some people handle this very complicated situation differently, and the contrasting mindsets between the two sisters reflected this. This isn't going to be a super long section. The overall look of the show is solid. It actually goes into great detail on how to cook and the different methods of catching fish. It's something fans of fishing or cute girl shows would enjoy. Before we continue, quick intermission.
Right here, good stuff.
Here's another romance, though this one is a little bit different than the others in this video. Call of the Night is a really interesting series to talk about, as there's so much I want to say, but I'm not sure where to start. I guess I'll start with what surprised me the most about the series, which is the character building and drama. It does a masterful job at making the vampires feel less like monsters and more like normal people that go through normal people problems, while also making their wars and lives different enough so you can clearly see just how large the line is between the two species. So when a character like Anko is introduced, who's essentially the antagonist, you can understand where she's coming from to an extent, but she's so hateful and views them all as monsters, which we know is wrong because we spent a significant portion of the series learning that they're not. The mysteries presented in the latter half of the season added great intrigue to a series that wasn't very plot heavy at all. It also adds multiple dimensions to not just Ko and Nazuna, but the entire cast in a way. Mahiru, who was presented as cool and careless, suddenly became extremely worried about Ko's safety and strongly rejected his vampire dream. The vampire ladies became more supportive, and we didn't really see Akira after the incident, but we can assume that almost getting eaten made her at least a little bit more frightened of the possibility of that monster becoming her childhood friend. Of course, the main development was Ko. He didn't really think through his plan to become a vampire, nor did he really know the downsides of gaining that power. This quick slap of reality made his resolve steeler because now he has more of a reason to become a vampire, to be with Nazuna, someone who changed his life. The plot of falling in love was pretty good. I had a theory Ko was aromantic or something because I feel like a normal middle schooler would have fallen in love with Nazuna by now, but I'm not sure on it. Maybe he's just confused. There are still moments where he feels attraction to somebody, or at least is blushing. I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist. The last thing is the production. I had a feeling that Tomoyuki Itamura was behind this one even before I looked it up because Nazuna's introduction scene feels straight out of Monogatari. There are so many Monogatari-esque scenes in this anime. It also feels like his other work, Vanitas, specifically with the comedy and blood-sucking scenes. I feel bad for constantly comparing it because I spent most of the time on the seasonal review comparing it, but it really does feel like his other works from the past. There are many unique uses of color. The city is actually completely different depending on the section you're in. You could also believe that the school uses uses cooler colors for a more moodier feel since Ko doesn't attend the school anymore and probably doesn't have that high of an opinion on it. And the brighter colors are used for other areas because he sees that area as more fun. Yeah, I'm overthinking it, but as an anime reviewer, it's part of the qualifications. It's a stretch, but I'd like to think there's a reason for the color choices in this anime. It could be because it just looks really freaking cool. I also love the color change to a darker red when it gets serious. You really do forget how dangerous the vampires can be because of how chill Nazuna is. So this sudden seriousness combined with the color change and the really good animation is another dose of reality for both the characters and the viewers. The vibe is really hammered home with the music and very chill background tracks. There was one track in particular, you know if you've seen the show, it's the only one that has lyrics in it, but this song showcases a beautiful use of versatility. It can feel like a song you hear when you're casually flying through the nighttime sky, but it also has the vibe of something you listen to alone while walking the street at night. Whether being memorized in astonishment or completely lonely, it worked really well for both of the scenes. It's a series I see getting even better with another season as the story continues to become more involved and there are more layers to the characters. It's a series I'd stick with even if it isn't your cup of tea. I think I'll call this anime Ninja Kuni for the duration of this section because saying in the heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki throughout this entire review just sounds nauseating. To put Ninja Kuni very simply, as there is more to this series than you'd expect, Ninja Kuni is a pretty by-the-books cute girl show that I thought was pretty underrated upon release. Obviously it isn't for everybody, but I thought it succeeded in pretty much everything you'd expect in this kind of show and then some. The focus on adolescent love and how it makes someone feel was really well done and realistic, especially since it's almost taboo in their world to fall in love due to the genders being split. I thought this series did a good job focusing on its side characters. This is a pretty large cast and each team is developed nicely in a half episode, sometimes more if they're important. While Team Dog is the main team, each team feels important and memorable. Even months after watching this, I remember characters like Benny Sumomo and how interesting her dynamic was with her team, pretending to be laid back and not caring about training because she wants to be seen as naturally gifted. So even though she's working hard, she doesn't want it to be known. The chemistry between the main group was really funny. I really like Sazanka's lust, I guess, towards Tsubaki. She really does remind me of Kuroko. Asagao also being a big dumbass was really funny. And the group's chemistry gets better once Window is introduced as well. All the teams have a special charm that just really makes them entertaining and memorable. My only real issue with the show is the pacing is a little quick. Like you learn about the reason as to why the genders are split very quickly. But in a show like this where the plot doesn't really matter all that much, I can let it go. The animation was a lot better than I expected it would be. Of course, it is Cloverworks, who are one of the best studios in terms of animation quality, but it was really good for a cute girl anime. A lot of the action scenes look really fluid despite them being really few and far between, but just the overall look of the show is really well done. Sometimes the music is really good as well. I ain't got much to say about this one other than the fact that this is an extremely cute and funny show. I feel it's important to mention that I've never played the mobile game, or the original game for that matter, which I don't even think you can play anymore. So this is purely from an anime-only perspective. Priconne sounds like a Pokemon. May not seem like an interesting show from the cover, or the basic premise, just sounds like another isekai. And to an extent you're right, not like this is a very original title or anything, but Priconne does enough to set it apart from the traditional isekai, and all its elements are handled so fantastically that it made a name for itself as a standout in these gacha game adaptations, proving that the best way to promote your game is to actually make the advertisement good. The biggest standout in this adaptation is the animation. While season 1 was great in this regard, it was season 2 that really put it over the edge as one of the best animated shows I've seen this year. You really have to give Cygames credit for making a new animation studio and hiring a ton of animators to make sure it looks good. Not even just the big moments, the regular animation in the more slice of life scenes is also really good. You can really feel the passion behind the product. So many of these game adaptations feel like soulless promotions. It's almost a breath of fresh air to see one that actually cares about making the anime fun. Smaller things like the way the anime uses the glitch effects, the art style change for the historical kingdom, to even the facial expressions help make the show an enjoyable experience. Honestly, the issue I saw with the anime is the fact that it is a gacha game adaptation. It can be hard to remember all the characters because there are so many of them. I mean, look at them all. That's not even all of them. I'm not saying these side characters are bad, there are a lot of gems in them, and they all stand out from an art perspective. But it gets a little tough to remember all the names and their powers as someone who hasn't played the game. Nonetheless, the main cast is actually really well developed, and most of the season is about their growth. Priconne getting the word that was taken from her back, Carol's blind loyalty, slowly uncovering the mystery surrounding Yuki's past, not only in the fantasy world, but it briefly mentions his time in the real world, it seems. Now this could very well be a different section of the fantasy world. This doesn't have to be the real world. I never got to talk about this, but I love the way the anime made what is usually a major negative, that being the self-insert main protagonist, into a positive by making him mentally a child. He's really funny to me. But now he has a little bit more depth. It makes you want a sequel to learn more about him and the characters he lost. Despite this feeling like an ending story-wise, there's still so much to learn about. This anime does a lot well. I didn't think this season 2 would be as emotionally gripping as it was, but I appreciated the focus on the story and the characters. The only real problem I had with it was the fact it has to introduce all these characters, and thus the story takes a back seat at points. Now, I completely understand why they have to. You have to promote the game in some way, and you have to make sure people want to actually buy these characters with money. But even then, if you're a fan of comedy anime, then it's not a massive deal, because all these side characters and their groups are pretty funny. Watch it if you like. This is the other idol anime I mentioned earlier that's my favorite. This is a surprising little idol anime that was more entertaining than I thought it'd be, even as an idol fan. Of course, idol shows will all have similarities with each other. I'm not saying this is a unique experience or anything, but it accomplishes the little things and it makes it an enjoyable watch. Plus, to give it credit, the story surprised me a fair bit of times, and each twist made sense and didn't feel sudden. I'm not gonna go too hard on details here to avoid spoiling it, but the big twist involving Haru was actually shown to us subtly before it was actually announced. And it's like that with every character in the anime. Ryo's inferiority complex, Kyoka's self-consciousness about not standing out, the big moments for these characters were well done. Which kinda leads me perfectly to the best part of the show. It's a surprisingly well-animated show, which is becoming Studio Kai's stick. Not sure where they came from, but they've had a great one in their short history so far. This is more of a Super Cub type animated show, where it's not particularly flashy like the other anime they made this year, but it's incredibly fluid in its movements. The dance scenes looked great each time, with so many small movements being done with the hair and the clothes. The blend of 3D wasn't jarring in any way to me. They actually hit it pretty well, and when they did use it, it wasn't for a long enough time for me to care that much. The quiet scenes were very emotional. It made a scene like Rio singing and realization that she finally got noticed that much more hard-hitting. It also helped that her performance was just stellar in that scene, and throughout the entire show, really, the cast had great chemistry with one another. It made the show a lot funnier. The rivalry between Highwayne and all that and Wen, which I'm not gonna get into out of fear of spoiling it, but it is a little bit of a tough arc to get into initially because of how unlikable Wen appears to be. She does get better later on though. There's also kind of a weird thing with the manager being able to see when people lie. It's a supernatural quirk in a show that's based in the normal world, and they never really explain how he has this power, but it's just a way for the show to differentiate itself from other idol anime, so I get why the power is in the show. Regardless of these issues, I think it's a really good show that was sadly missed by a lot due to delays and just being a stat season with 3 idol shows already in it. But trust me, it's the best idol anime to come out of all of those, by quite a long shot. So check it out. The songs are great too. I think it's my hidden gem of the year. Booksekai offers a unique spin on the isekai genre, opting for a more casual watching experience, mainly featuring the main character, Mine, trying to invent books in this ancient world. While this series is a relaxing experience, it has drama and some action scenes involving the church. With the massive developments in Season 2, I thought Season 3 would be a bit more of a palate cleanser, especially with the lower episode amount, but boy was I wrong. Season 3 changed the story completely and is arguably the most crucial season so far. While it doesn't have as many interesting character developments or hard-hitting drama, the scumminess of the church is pretty clear at this point. It shifted the trajectory of the story completely and left me excited for Season 4. For those who've never heard of this series, it's a pretty underrated isekai in my opinion. The slower pacing allows for the more emotional moments to feel more important, and also allows the mysteries of the series to build in the background, allowing the viewer to piece together what's actually happening. And it's a very character-built show, which are all pretty likable, and the series handles their various traumas really well. I enjoy the theme of family bondness and how it can emotionally affect somebody losing/gaining a family. They demonstrated this really well with Delia's character, I thought, almost grasping at ways to try and stay with her brother. The production is also fairly consistent. It's one of the better light novel adaptations out there in my opinion. While I wouldn't say this is better than Season 2, Season 3 set up Season 4 really nicely, and I can't think of a better time to start watching the series now that the plot has almost completely shifted around. Aharen is another example of a well-done romantic comedy that hits all the beats you'd expect in these kind of shows. I do think with my love for Kana, Wenge, and now Aharen, I've developed a love for kudere lollies. And Aharen is another example of being both cute and funny. But do not get misconstrued by the title, she isn't indecipherable. She's actually quite normal if you really break her down. It's just that the main guy of the show, Waido, has a habit of drawing up really extreme conclusions, causing him to misunderstand Aharen a lot. I think he's right about her once, which was the Beyblade episode. The couple is actually pretty well built. They're not really aware that they're essentially a couple. They just kinda hang out together and it just happens. The whole love aspect really doesn't come into play until about the second half of the season, where Aharen blushing becomes a regular sight in the series. This image should be framed. Of course, like every romance anime between two shy people, you have to have the best friend character who only exists to further the plot along. You do have some standouts though. Ushio was cute in her shyness, and I really enjoyed their teacher. It's nice to see a common character cliche get put onto a literature teacher of all things. I will admit, hearing her talk about youth love in such a Shakespearean type way was funny to me. Also, Futaba. She's an entertaining tsundere child who assumes Aharen is a Shotokan trying to steal her childhood friend crush. That is generally her character, I'm not lying. I mean, we all know the fate of the childhood friend character. It's best to let this happen now rather than in high school or something. The final thing about this series is it references memes a fair bit, which is a love it or hate it thing, I get it. As long as they don't say poggers or some dumb shit like that, I'm fine with it. Listen, nobody says poggers in actual conversation, okay? Do we even say that online anymore? This is the problem with memes. They die off so quickly that stuff like, fidget spinners and, Pokemon Go were relevant back when the manga came out, but now we're 5 years later and it's very much not anymore. Unless Japan is different, I don't know, maybe they're big Maddox fans down there. Anyway, I don't really care about it myself, but I saw some people making a big deal about it, so I felt like it might have been important to bring up. It's actually kinda nostalgic in a way. Overall, it's a decent little rom-com that you can watch easily with some pretty funny moments in it. It actually built up to a sequel pretty well, so I'm hoping for a season 2 here. Watch Made in Abyss. It's going to be tough to talk about everything that makes this series fantastic in this short little review, but if you're going to pick only one anime to watch out of this video, make it this one. It's so easy to get caught up in buzzwords and adjectives when talking about media to the point they begin to lose all meaning. I'm guilty of this. But it is generally one of the most engaging experiences in modern anime, and I would not be surprised if we look back on this series 10 years later as a classic. Made in Abyss does everything a fantasy has to do in the best way possible. It is a world filled with intrigue and mystery, a marvelous, visually stunning beauty that features some of the most grotesque rules and systems. Season 2 just built upon this even more. The Village of the Hollows is a beautiful place visually and a fantastic story of a society being created, but the origins are dark, focused on a tragedy by a group of people desperately trying to find what they're looking for, and at the end, they never accomplish that goal. Season 2 focuses on a story of revenge, centering around a new character, Fapida, a beast-like creature whose only purpose is to avenge her mother, to destroy the village that turned her into a monstrosity, only to find out that Fapida only had half the story. Fapida was born with her hateful side, but only got to see how her mother really felt after it was too late. I can't say much about the plot out of fear of spoiling more than I've already have, but this character was amazingly executed, and not only does she teach us more about Weg, but also showed us a new side of the Abyss, the origins of the Golden City. It will probably be a fun new add-on to the journey. I already stated that this art is gorgeous, but it really can't be said enough. Every section of the Abyss has looked completely different, and the more colorful appearance in this one compared to the darker look of the previous arc was a nice touch. I've said this before on this channel, but fantasy allows you to be more creative with art, probably more than any other method of storytelling, and Made in Abyss goes all out with the character designs of the Hollows. Though I do wish the CGI was a little better on some of the bigger ones like Kaja or Belaf, but that's such a small nitpick of an otherwise beautifully produced show that I'm kinda mad at myself for bringing it up. The music is still brilliant. Kevin Penkin knows how to make a scene much more emotionally gripping with his usage of the soundtrack, creating some depressing-ass tunes to make the depressing-ass scene even more depressing. Ah, the pain. The pain. I'll stop myself here. Watch this series. It's better than what you heard. It's probably Anime of the Year for me, but I'm not really sure yet. Either way, it'll definitely be up there. Alright, I think that's enough of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously this isn't every show I watched this year, but I feel like if I put every anime I enjoyed on this list, the video would be about 40 hours long, so we're gonna cut it off here. And I hope that we have another good year of anime for 2023. I hope we have a nice fail bit. I want to make more videos this year. I have a review planned already for one of the most popular anime that finished during the fall season. I'll see y'all later. This has been Kikaya, and I'll see you.